also, I would love to. There's a few questions I wanted to ask you about Shia Islam, if I may.
Please
Um,
do, please do.
um, well, I guess going back to sort of like the general overview you were giving, you know, just a little while before. Um, you talked about this sort of idea of the correct interpretation and divine inspiration, and this specific importance of the genealogical links between the prophet and his successors, right?
Yeah.
Um, I was wondering, so that's there's specifically this. Um, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a figure named Ali.
Yeah. So that was his cousin and also his son-in-law,
Okay,
uh, his first cousin.
right. Um, and and that's sort of where this rift starts, right, between Sunni and Shia traditions.
Yeah.
Is the immediate successor of the prophet, right?
hmm So just a brief, I don't want to get bogged down in history, but briefly,
Yeah.
there were Ali was the first cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, and he was also he married his daughter, and he was the only person. His that daughter of his was the only daughter through which the Prophet Muhammad had descendants.
I
Okay,
see.
he had a couple other daughters according to history, but all of them died before him.
Hmm.
So yeah, that daughter Fatima is the mother of Hassan and Hussein, and Hassan and Hussein, Hassan the elder, Hussein the younger.
Hmm.
They were the two grandsons of the Prophet,
Hmm.
and they were the next in 12 Shia Islam. They are the second and third Imam, and then through the descendants of Hussein, you have the remaining nine Imams, bringing you to 12 altogether.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry,
there's
is the second Ali, or is the first Ali?
Ali,
The first
Ali,
is
yeah. So his he
ah,
was
because Muhammad, the prophet wasn't an imam.
the
Ah, it's
prophet
not.
was the prophet. We won't get into like the technicalities of what an imam is because it's very it's you need to go and reference texts, and I don't want to go through that. But yeah, so Prophet Muhammad, after him, his first successor is believed to be Ali, then
Hmm,
his two sons, and then the descendants of his younger sons.
I see.
Mixed them. But there
Yeah.
was so where the Sunnis differ is there was a companion of the Prophet called Abu Bakr.
Hmm,
The Prophet had many companions; he had thousands of companions, but one of the closest companions was a man called Abu Bakr. And after the Prophet died, the community basically went to went and elected him as the successor.
hmm,
The
hmm.
Shias object to this because they argue that the successor to the Prophet Muhammad or any prophet can't be elected. It's only God has the right to
Hmm.
appoint, right? And
Yeah.
polemical debates. And
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my youth looking at the Sunni arguments here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a headache. That's my conclusion at the end of 20 odd years of my life. It's a headache. And my I suppose the other reason, which apart from being endless headache, like and going on forever,
Hmm,
what it does is if you get bogged down and like completely consumed by the polemics,
hmm.
it distracts you entirely from the essence of the message of Islam, or which I would argue is the same in Sunni and Shia Islam, and the same as in every other religion. It's like
Hmm.
it's having a relationship with that ultimate reality, with that
Yeah.
what we call God, right?
Yeah.
Or perhaps I think another way of understanding is tuning yourself, resonating
Hmm.
um, with God, with the supreme reality. So you can, polemics have their place, theology and theological debates have their place, sure, but for the average person, if the, you often find also that these arguments are they're def- they're characterized by really bad manners and really horrible
Yeah.
argument. Real, I suppose what's the phrase bad blood between the
Yeah.
people who have them, and there are exceptions, but that's not the rule. Generally the rule of thumb is it's just horrible witnessing them, never mind taking part in them. And I think even people who are quite prominent in this field of arguments, whether it's within
Hmm.
Islam, Shia and Sunnis, or between Muslims and other Muslims, they themselves, I've heard them testify that it's not good for your soul, basically what they're
Uh,
saying, that people they I think they think that having these bad-blooded, these arguments, these that build your blood pressure basically. Um, they affect your spirituality.
Yeah.
They dampen your relationship with God. So I try to stay away from them nowadays, for the
Hmm.
most part.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it speaks volumes that like of anything that I learned about Islam in the American public education system, what I like they taught us about that, like there's really an emphasis I think on within the sort of perception of Islam, at least as I'm familiar with it, growing up in the U.S., is sort of like this idea that it's like such this important, real. It's like the whole. That's what it's all about. Is like that conflict,
Yeah,
because and I think we have a tendency, and this is another conversation also, but a tendency toward like focusing on that drama and these sort of sources of like violent conflict. But I really like what you said about the fundamental importance of getting in touch with that reality.